Welcoming traveler. Get ready to level up in Dynasty football.
Good evening, morning, afternoon, or whatever time of day it is to the Fantasy Football RPG listeners. Thank you very much for tuning in. It is FF Mike Cash, your commissioner, dungeon master, and your best friend. I am joined as always by Evan. Evan, how are you?
It's allergy season here in Tennessee, and it's putting me out in a hard way, so I apologize to the listeners tonight if I sound a little funny. I know I may always sound a little funny to you, but tonight might be extra exaggerated.
You finally have an excuse for it. Makes a ton of sense. We are joined by a very special guest this evening, Scott Barrett, the Fantasy Points CEO. Scott, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Love that music. That got me super pumped up. I don't know who did that music. That was awesome.
Yeah, that is our old co-host, Corey. He had to step away so that he could go into business ventures because he's smarter than we are, and we're still just talking about football. Real quick, before we dive into the fun stuff, I want to shout out. So Reddit is doing a Fantasy Cares giveaway. So my friends on the Fantasy Football subreddit, they have a draft contest going on right now to support the Fantasy Cares charity. You can answer questions like who's going to go number 2 overall, where you think Brock Bowers gets drafted, like prove that you're smarter than the people that you are trolls to on Twitter. And all of this is for a chance to win signed merchandise, Scott Fishbowl entries, and more. You can even win Fantasy Football RPG merch. We're giving away a hat and some stickers. So I'm competing. Go see how you stack up, and you can enter. I put it as the top comment on this video, so it'll be easy for y'all to find. Sorry for that lengthy little takeaway. Before we get into the meat and potatoes, let's do a little cold open. Evan, you wrote this one. You want to ask it?
Yeah, so the cold open this week, we try and keep it generically about something fun, and this is going to draw back to your childhood. So what is your favorite NFL memory from your childhood? Mike, you want to start us?
I would love to. Steelers fan. I was 9. I had just turned 10 years old when they won Super Bowl 40. I watched it with my dad and my little brothers in our living room, and we all jumped up and down, and we were talking about how Ben didn't make it across on his run. We all lost our mind when Willie Parker ran 75 yards because Alan Faneca's a freaking hoss on a power scheme to the right. Love to see it. Like, just the whole Super Bowl experience with my family was something that I will never forget. Scott, what's your favorite NFL memory?
I was 9 or 10 years old. It was the 2000 NFC Championship, Giants beating the Vikings 41-0. I was at that game in the old stadium, the old Giants stadium, which is so much better than the new stadium. And it was like an earthquake. People were going nuts. It was just, I think they were underdogs in that game. And it was just a colossal beatdown on one of the best offenses of football at the time. Giants defense came out, Giants offense came out. And then they lost the Super Bowl, and I cried like a little girl. But that was awesome. That was definitely my favorite sports moment.
That's a great one. The old stadium is always better. Three Rivers was better than Allegiant. MetLife it's tough that you got to share that. But Evan, what's your favorite memory?
Yeah, so mine is going to be the TO game back in 2005 for the Eagles, coming off of a broken leg and a torn ligament. It was an epic performance by TO against the Patriots. One of the few Super Bowls the Eagles have been in, even though they have a lot of NFL championships, but not very many Super Bowl appearances in this day and age. And T.O. put on an absolute show in that game. The doctors said that he wasn't cleared to play in the game, and he told them, sorry, I'm playing.
Yeah. Got the dog in him, put the team on his back. Real quick, Evan, you didn't put this in the show notes, but...
And now it's time for news and notes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important news you will ever hear. This is earth-shattering. This is dynasty-altering. This is life-changing. Zach Wilson has been traded to the Broncos. The Mountain Lions in Colorado need to be on the lookout. Evan, does this rustle your jimmies for any fantasy football way?
How much can I buy Zach Wilson for? Can I get
Probably
him
like
for
$4 of fab.
Fourth rounder?
Yep.
I mean, if you give me a guy that has a 10% shot at starting for a 401, sign me up. I mean,
Okay.
it's a free lottery ticket at that point. I mean, Sean Payton does a lot of reckless things.
Yep.
So he would be the kind of guy that would say, I'm going to mortgage 3 first-round picks to be able to go get a quarterback. And I might not even be with this team in the future when those first-round picks are maturing. But he might do it. He also might not. And if you get one start this year out of Zach Wilson for a 4th-round pick, 100% worth it from a team building.
Okay. Scott, sorry to put you on the spot. Does Zach Wilson move you emotionally in any way at all?
Yeah, I kind of like this. I'm kind of excited about it. Like the take like everyone's putting out is like, this is so stupid. Like obviously he's the worst quarterback of all time. He's so bad. Sean Payton, hubris, etc. And like I think like all that's right. Like Zach Wilson's horrible. But like I kind of buy into Sean Payton's hubris. Like even if he's a little overrated as an NFL coach, he's always been awesome for fantasy. Like people don't give him enough credit. He had since 2018, his quarterbacks, Taysom Hill averaged 20.5 fantasy points per start. Drew Brees, age 39, 40, 41, 19.8. Trevor Siemian, 18.0. Jameis Winston, 17.2. Teddy Bridgewater, 17.1. That's all like low end fringe QB1 production. And so like, it's hard not to get excited about like a quarterback being coached by Sean Payton. I don't think you're going to get anything this year. I don't think you're going to get, certainly not this year, but like something down the road, there's like hope. Like he's free in dynasty leagues right now. And it's just, he went 2nd overall for a reason. Like the guy has rare, unique traits, and maybe Payton can beat whatever plagued him out of him, which to me was mostly, I think, mental confidence, seeing ghosts, horrible under pressure, and all that stuff. But like, you still look at it like the past 2 seasons, right? If you could just take the 10 best plays of every quarterback and like only watch those, you would think Zach Wilson was like the 13th best quarterback in football. The problem is he only had 10 good plays. Like the rest were horrible and like the worst low light film of any quarterback. But he still has that sort of hint of upside, and he's a guy who's free, and it's a good coach. So like I was mildly excited by it when I felt like everyone else was kind of dumping on it.
Yeah. I feel like it breathes life into him from a dynasty standpoint. Like if he's going to turn into something, now there's a chance for him to do it. I personally don't think it's going to happen, but we'll see.
Right. Well, I think the Broncos are trading up for a quarterback, but we'll get to that. So
yeah. All right. Well, it's time.
Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Horrible.
Oh yeah. We are going to go through some NFL draft pick scenarios. So we took mock draft data. We looked at some of the most likely landing spots for these players. We're going to omit top 3 quarterbacks. We're going to omit top 3 receivers. And we're going to talk about, the J.J. McCarthy's, the Brian Thomases, the A.D. Mitchells, and like how they would impact the teams around them. So it's not just if they go there, it's good for this player, but also if they go there, like what happens on the Panthers if they get another possession receiver? How does that impact Deontay Johnson? Is it good for Bryce Young? We'll dive into a lot of that later. We're going to kick it off with some quarterbacks. First and foremost, J.J. McCarthy. Most likely landing spots per mock draft data right now. Vikings at 5, they trade up, which is everybody just kind of has that penciled in. Broncos at 12 if he falls. The Giants at 6 if they fall in love. And the Pats trading back and getting him at 11. Scott, what is your favorite landing spot of this, and how would it impact your expectations for the team?
Yeah, so it's definitely the Vikings. Easily the best landing spot, where last year they had a few games from Kirk Cousins and he had 3 different backup quarterbacks, and he still led the league in passing yards. Just like a potent, fast-paced, high-volume offense, really sharp OC. With that supporting cast, it feels like an impossible to fail scenario for fantasy, and like great landing spot for someone particularly like McCarthy, who doesn't offer much rushing upside. So he'll need that volume in a Minnesota offense with good receivers. What does it do for the support from quarterback takes? I will just say, like, the sharpest film mind I know, Brett Whitefield, who's a director of charting over at Fantasy Points Data, worked for PFF for a number of years, has the best hit rate I've seen of anyone when it comes to scouting quarterbacks and wide receivers and a lot of other positions. And he says JJ McCarthy is the QB1 in this class. He put this out before anyone else. He put this out when he was a late round 1 pick, and this isn't a hot take artist. That's just what he was like. I watched every snap multiple times of all these quarterbacks dating back years, and this is my QB1, and I feel good about it. And so, yeah, I think he might be underrated. I think, I mean, like, listen, if Jefferson's getting it done as banged up as he was with as bad quarterback play as he had, you can't be worried about it. And probably like an upgrade over what he had last year. Hawkinson too, it's kind of the same thing. He's really good at that as a possession receiver. Those PPRs are key. And Addison, I don't know. I'm not really an Addison guy, but should be fine just in that role, in that offense with Jefferson taking away alpha cornerbacks. That would be my read on it. And most likely landing spots, I would put it at Vikings 1, Broncos 2.
Yeah. I was actually perusing FanDuel earlier today. The Vikings are still the favorites. I think they're actually got to minus money, which is wild for a pick. You know, they're not even in the top 5, and JJ's not even a projected top 4 pick. So it's strange to see that. Evan, I want to rotate over to you. Of the 3 landing spots that we named already, is there one that's speaking to you? Like, where would you want McCarthy to go, and where do you think that he could bring a lot to help his team?
Yeah, so I heard your question, Mike. I'm actually going to go a completely different direction here. So the one that I think that would be the most interesting is we've seen quarterbacks fall in recent drafts that end up looking like that QB3, QB4. We've seen them slide down the board. We saw that with Levis last year, slid all the way to the 2nd round. We saw that with Malik Willis. I mean, that was a complete bust. Yeah, I mean, people were mocking him super high in the 1st round. So there is precedence. And I think with the Dynasty community already being very split on McCarthy, if he slides all the way to 12 without anybody trading up for him and just falls into the Broncos' lap, what would that do to the mindset of a Dynasty gamer? And then you look at the team around him. It's a middling offensive line with a tight end room that has a whole heck of a lot of questions, a running back room where you have a guy that's never really been the bell cow, and then you have Cortland Sutton. Who
Did I just hear Javonte Williams and Greg Dulcich slander in the same sentence? This is unacceptable.
100%. You heard both that. And then you have a crazy man in Sean Payton. So, I mean, who knows what the offense is going to look like? Is he the offensive guru still that he used to be? Was he propped up by Drew Brees for all of those years? Oh, man. All right. We're getting into a lot of different things there. But I think it would be really interesting to see the mindset of Dynasty gamers if he falls all the way to 12 without a team trading up for him. And I kind of want to see that happen.
Yeah, it would be fun. I don't know if good for fantasy teams is the right way, but
it would be interesting to see what kind of overreaction are we looking at. You know, do people start saying, oh, well, no team traded up for him, so he can't be that good? Oh, now he went in the Mac Jones range. Oh, no, that I mean, those are dirty words. We can't be saying that anymore around here. So, yeah, I think that would cause a decent amount of panic where Dynasty gamers would say, oh, he's still a 1st rounder. Oh, he should walk into the quarterback starting job there. Does have Sean Payton. Does it really mean as much as it used to, though?
Quarterback room with Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, and JJ McCarthy is just nightmare fuel for some people.
Okay. Fair, understand. But, yeah, we'll see.
I like JJ McCarthy. I have a 1st round grade on him, so I'm excited to see where he goes. I actually think so. My big board drops tomorrow. I think I have him at 9. So weirdly high on him considering the jokes we were making about him earlier in the year. I'm going to hop around by position a little bit so we just don't lock in at quarterback. Let's hop over to tight ends. We're only going to cover 1 today. Let's talk a little bit about Brock Bowers. So 3 most likely landing spots: the Jets at 10, the Chargers at 11, the Colts at 15. Scott, are there any of those that are just they're spooky to you? You don't want Brock to go there, or they all seem like good landing spots because of who he is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of kind of like the Jets. Like I'm buying into the notion that, Aaron Rodgers is going to come back, be potent. They don't really have anyone else beyond Garrett Wilson. And so he could be this like PPR cheat code, a lot of screens. He's also like insanely pro ready. So I don't see him getting under Aaron's skin. But I'm hearing that the Jets like kind of aren't going to do that. They're going to trade down and take an offensive lineman. I don't have any sources. Like, don't even listen to me. I just like have friends who I know are connected and like they tell me things, which might just be rumors, but that's what I'm hearing. But yeah, to me, I kind of like that one the most, but I think just given the talent, he could be fine anywhere. The Chargers have no receivers, so he'll get the volume. Colts, we know tight ends are important to the head coach, and yeah, I could see that being a good landing spot as well. I don't know. I guess that's all I got.
Yeah, I think in each of these situations, he would either be the number 1 or number 2 option on the team. Like maybe the Colts, like him and Josh Downs would be fighting for a couple of targets, but I think he probably earned the majority of the touches there. When we talk about a tight end going as high as they're going here, this isn't 2010 where we're worried about like what's going to happen when somebody takes like an Evan Ingram type receiver, or like Eric Ebron back in the day. Like they took them early. They didn't know what to do with him. They were like, I have this piece and he's just kind of sitting in my toolbox. Now, when we look at head coaches taking a Brock Bowers, like the majority of them take them and then have a plan for him, and they're going to employ him correctly. So I'm really hoping that Brock Bowers goes to a Chargers type team, because I think that Aaron Rodgers would take a little bit to like earn his trust. And I do agree they're going to take a tackle. Talais Fulanga. Can't wait to see him in New York. That's kind of a chalk pick right now. But Evan, of the 3, which one are you most excited about? Because I asked Scott the spooky one.
100%. It is the Colts. Shane Steichen. What does that organization love? They love mismatch opportunities. They love athletic guys. He presents both of those things, and he can also hold his own as an inline blocker. You start looking at the contract situation for the tight ends for the Colts. You see Mo Alley Cox expires at the end of this coming season. Kylan Granson expires at the end of this coming season. Jelani Woods hasn't really proved much. Will Mallory hasn't proved anything. So it's a tight end room that I think will really benefit, especially with having a quarterback like Richardson that's still working on developing. And I absolutely love Shane Steichen as a play caller. I think he is one of the best play callers in the league. So I think he would absolutely 100% just use Bowers to the most of his ability.
I want to believe that, and I think that he would. But Anthony Richardson, rushing quarterback, we talk about how that could be a problem for pass catchers. I mean, Brock Bowers is going to get design touches, and he's going to make it happen. Bottom line, we're excited about Brock, regardless of what happens. Actually, real quick, Scott, Dynasty drafts, sorry to put you on the spot again. Where would you be comfortable taking Brock Bowers with no tight end premium, super flex?
No tight end premium, super flex after the big 4 quarterbacks, after the big 3 wide receivers.
So 108.
Yeah.
Okay. Evan, do you think differently or just similar?
Without a premium, the question would be where JJ goes.
Yep.
But yeah, 7, 8, that range.
Yeah, that's fair. Could definitely see one of those quarterbacks taking a slide, but I would be curious to see in a super flex league, let's say Bo Nix or Michael Penix goes in the first round. Now we got to start talking like first round quarterback, tight end, no premium. We get into some spooky stuff. But before we do that, let's talk about some wide receivers. First and foremost, Brian Thomas Jr. I'm in love with him. I think he's DK Metcalf, but without the like bricked up build. Most likely landing spots. Bills at 28, Colts at 15, Jaguars at 17. I think Colts at 15 is hilarious because the Colts, like, you can sort by RAS, relative athletic score, and then sort by Colts draft picks, and they kind of like overline perfectly. They just like big, fast dudes, which is awesome. But of those 3 landing spots, Scott, which one speaks to you emotionally?
I like the DK Metcalf comp, except like for me, it's who everyone thought DK Metcalf was coming into the draft, not who he eventually became.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, I had one stat, when he was coming out where it's like over the last 2 seasons, 75% of DK Metcalf's yards have come in just 2 routes, the hitch and the go. And like the narrative was like very incomplete receiver, very raw. And Brian Thomas last year, 75% of his yards came on 2 routes, the hitch and the go. And so I just see a lot of that. I do kind of think he's being overrated, but he is ultimately my wide receiver 4. Anyway, perfect landing spot of these 3 is clearly the Bills. Like he is, even if I'm being hard on him, he's just very clearly, he can do everything Gabe Davis did, except at a much, much higher level. You have this elite deep ball thrower, arguably the best arm talent in football. So pair those guys up. I think that's a 6 spot. I think that's going to be huge for Josh Allen as well. Obviously they need receivers. So I like that.
I love the Gabe Davis call out. Like imagine Gabe Davis, but the team has draft capital to tie them to it. So we're talking about a guy that's getting more design touches, more first read looks, more opportunities. And you see Stephon Diggs gone. Like that would be to the moon there. Evan, Gabe Davis is in Jacksonville. So would he just eat Gabe Davis's lunch? Like how would his impact in Jacksonville kind of ruin other pieces or elevate Trevor Lawrence if you think he would do that?
Yeah, so I very much think that the Jacksonville situation would be a situation that fantasy gamers would have a lot more forgiveness with Brian Thomas Jr. if he ends up having that, 70 receptions for 700 yards, 800 yards type of season. I think that would 100% be in the realm of possibilities. You look at that Jacksonville offense. Okay, you're going to spread the ball around to Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne. And now you throw in Brian Thomas Jr. From an NFL standpoint, I mean, love it. NFL standpoint, let's go get our quarterback, of the future, a guy to be able to throw the ball downfield to and be able to win with.
Yeah. Allergies are hitting you hard. I hate to see it. I hope that you make a full recovery as we start moving back up the list. So Brian Thomas Jr., he's also my wide receiver 4, Scott. It's great to call that out. Do you think that he's wide receiver 4 just kind of like you feel like you have to because all of the tools are there, or like he's wide receiver 4 because you think that he's going to step in and be a 1 for an offense?
No, after the big 3, I don't really see a lot of wide receiver 1s. I just see landing spot dependent wide receiver 2s and 3s. I don't see him as a complete receiver, maybe given the athleticism and the traits he could develop into that. But ultimately, like my final score, a lot of what went into that was just wide receiver 4 projected draft capital, wide receiver 4 film grade, which I got from Brett Whitefield. And then the analytics, like I wouldn't say it was much worse or much better than anyone else. It was just, they were all kind of similar, but certainly not mad at wide receiver 4, even just going off of the analytics. It was just not round 1 caliber is what I would have said. But wide receiver 4 caliber for sure. That's fine.
And I was going to say, while you were talking there, Scott, I went ahead and pulled up DraftKings right now. And Brian Thomas Jr. minus 225 for over 19.5 for his draft position. So we're talking top 20 draft capital with him.
Yeah.
So
NFL loves big, fast boys. Mm-hmm. All right, let's cover. I want to hit both of these quarterbacks at the same time just because they're kind of gross to me. Scott, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, both of their projected landing spots. So Michael Penix, Raiders, Vikings, Rams, all of those are in the teens or 20s. Bo Nix, Broncos, Patriots, Vikings. I don't really want to talk about landing spots with them. I just want to ask you, do you see a future where either of these are a long-term starting quarterback for an NFL team?
Yeah, so I don't have any quarterback evaluation takes. Just analytically, there's not really
sorry about
much
that.
to go. No, that's fine. I just go off of really what Brett says and projected draft capital and rushing upside, all that stuff. But what I'm hearing about Penix is the Raiders are taking him. They loved Jaden Daniels earlier on, tried to trade for him, just couldn't get a package together. Now they've settled on Penix, and I actually like that landing spot because you see all the Romo, Dunze, Devontae Adams comps, but the flip side of that was Penix just like aggressive, great deep ball, like maybe elite deep ball. And that could work really well with Devontae Adams. And then Bo Nix. So I had Jim Nagy on my podcast. He said, talking to NFL teams, both of these guys are going round one. Penix could go mid round one. Nix, he said, I could see him going to Denver. And like, I think if Denver doesn't get McCarthy or one of the other quarterbacks, I think that's their fallback plan is Bo Nix. It's just, I don't see, like, Sean Payton had bad quarterbacks in New Orleans. And what did he do? He retired. Like, and then he was stuck with Russell Wilson for a year and, treated him like shit. And as soon as he could get rid of him, he got rid of him. He doesn't want to go through that again. That's not why he unretired. He's getting a quarterback for better or for worse. And so I could see that happening. And like I said, that I think that's a sneaky good landing spot.
Yeah. I don't know how much I love either of these quarterbacks long term, but if Jim Nagy says they're going to go in the first round, I trust him with my whole soul. Evan, let's say that they both go first round. Which skill position players are you comfortable taking over them? So there's the big three wide receivers we're all in love with. Would you take Brock Bowers? Would you take a wide receiver 4? Or like in super flex leagues, are you taking one of these quarterbacks if they go first?
If they go first round, I still think that the Dynasty community is wishy-washy on them. I think they're going to have a hard sell unless they really show out during the preseason, during the first half of the season, which historically just isn't really how it typically works when you're drafting a quarterback in the second half of the first round. So with that said, I would start considering them after we get through a JJ, after we get through a Brian Thomas. That would be the point. Bowers, that would be the point where I would start to consider them. I still think that I'm probably going to have another wide receiver, maybe a running back over them as well, which will likely push them for me to like that 111, 112 range if they go first round.
Yeah, if we see both of them go first round, your first round rookie drafts are going to get wild because there's going to be people that are in love with Bo. There's going to be people that are in love with Penix. We've seen people reach in ridiculous ways before, which is always fun. But let's move to our next wide receiver on the list. I want to skip way down. We don't even have him on here. I'm going to put everybody on the spot. Let's talk about Scott. I saw a tweet from you about Johnny Wilson. It was talking about his measurables next to Mike Evans, and it was hilarious. Let's say that Johnny Wilson goes third round to the Panthers. Would that move you in a way that makes you excited for fantasy, or is this just it's a bit at this point?
I had a really good landing spot for him that I can't remember, but yeah, Panthers would just be so hilarious. What do they need? Separation guys. And then they draft Johnny Wilson, who looks amazing. The only issue is really struggled to separate, at least by contested target rate, where it was like JJ Arcega-Whiteside levels so bad. And they're also looking at Xavier Legette, who kind of is being comped as like Mingo 2.0 or Treylon Burks 3.0. Yeah, that would be rough. But then again, like, they need a tight end, right? So maybe he could convert and immediately become my tight end 2 in this class.
Yeah. If Johnny Wilson becomes tight end eligible, he is immediately fantasy football gold because the way that he runs, the way that he moves like a receiver. He's also like too long to be a good blocker. Like, he just cannot get under defensive ends. So he would only be on the field for pass plays. Evan, Johnny Wilson, dead to you, third round rookie pick. Like, let's say he goes in the third round of the real NFL draft. Are you taking a swing?
Yeah, you've kind of known how I've felt about him. If he stays at wide receiver, I really don't want to take a swing on him. If he says, or the team says, that they want to transfer him to tight end and work on transitioning him, I'll take a swing because what do we want from what do we want from tight ends? We want them to be uber athletes because the uber athletes historically have the best shot at the top 6 seasons. So if I'm taking a shot on a late round tight end, I'm taking a shot on that play.
I will say, Johnny Wilson, you measure him at tight end, he is an elite athlete. We'll hit another wide receiver here real quick.
My ideal landing spot for Johnny Wilson would be the Broncos, where maybe he can be like Marquez Colston or Jimmy Graham for Sean Payton, or even slant boy Michael Thomas,
Yeah.
where, I trust in Sean Payton's ability to maybe mitigate some of those concerns, use him as a big slot where the separation issues aren't as concerning. But yeah, I'm a big Johnny Wilson guy, but like I can't deny there are massive red flags where typically I would write this player off.
Yeah. It was crazy to me. So we did a little film study on Johnny Wilson. It's up on the channel. Like sometimes he was able to use his body like a basketball player, box the guy out, use those pterodactyl arms and like really make it work. And then other times he just like let the ball come into his body. The defender's able to reach over him and swat it away. Like there were some inconsistencies there that it kind of turned me off. But early in the process, I was really excited about him, and I've cooled recently. Let's talk about if Johnny Wilson is on one side of the spectrum, huge, tall, fast in like the long area, but takes some time to accelerate. Let's go all the way to the other end of the spectrum. Ladd McConkey, small, accelerates quickly, very polished route runner. So his top 3 landing spots right now on mock draft data is the Chiefs at 32, the Panthers in round 2, and the Patriots in round 2, which name a more Patriots receiver than Ladd McConkey. Scott, which one of these would be the best landing spot for fantasy football, and which one makes you most excited?
Yeah, it's obviously the Chiefs. I mean, that's just the nuts landing spot. Like you just can't not say the Chiefs. I will say, like, this is who the Panthers should draft, though. Like, this is what you need. You need a separation artist. You need, a check down guy, a PPR cheat code, possession receiver, and Ladd McConkey certainly fits the bill. But yeah, I mean, Chiefs lacking in weapons, best quarterback in football. That's exciting.
Quick question with the Panthers. Do you not think Deontay Johnson is that PPR machine? Like, bro,
I don't know what it is. I keep forgetting every time someone brings that. I keep forgetting he goes there. Yeah. Okay. No, Deontay Johnson's. Yeah.
Like the moment that he went there, I like kind of checked the box. I was like, they have a separator. Now they need a deep threat. Like,
hell yeah. I'm a big Deontay guy too. Like that was a great move for them.
100%. I'm a Steelers fan. And actually, one of those helmets back there is signed by Deontay Johnson. Don't know what that's worth now because it's a Steelers one. But
he was the most tilting player ever in DFS because he was never owned. And every week I'm like, go all in. And he would either get 10 targets and score 22 points. So like he was valuable, but didn't like break the slate or anything. Or he would leave the game early with an injury and then spend 2 quarters in the blue medical tent and then come out and score 13 fantasy points. And he just did that. Oh, and then there's always like one horrible drop. And that's the Deontay Johnson experience. So he gets open at will. So he's awesome. I like him.
Yeah, no, it feels like he just kind of like wiggles his hips and defenders fall over. It's amazing. Evan, Chiefs are off the board. Panthers are off the board. I'm going to make you talk about the Patriots. Would Ladd McConkey get 130 targets in New England?
130 targets. I don't know if anybody's getting over 100 targets in that offense. The offense has a lot of question marks. You start looking at the guys. I mean, they brought in KJ Osborne. They still have Pop Douglas there. They have the corpse of Juju still there. What's that going to do for you? Probably nothing. They have former high draft capital pick in Tyquan Thornton from the Bill days. Gotta love some of those Bill Belichick draft classes. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely room for him to be able to work in this offense. Put him outside, could take the spot of Kendrick Bourne relatively easily, and could have a 100 target, a 90 target, maybe 90 target, 65 receptions, say 700 yard, 4-5 touchdown type season, which I would think would be a win if you're taking him in the second round of most rookie drafts. So
yeah, he can just keep grabbing targets. Bo is really excited about something. He loves him some Ladd McConkey, but I think he's going to be a target machine. He's going to earn all sorts of good stuff. I just don't ever see him getting any kind of touchdowns, which is unfortunate. I meant to cover this earlier. Let's dive into it now. Jonathan Brooks. So projected to go to the Cowboys in round 2, which the Cowboys surgeon is the one that did his ACL repair for all the fun people at home. The Ravens in round 2, so he can sit behind Derrick Henry while he recovers and then become a freak afterwards. He's going to gain 30 pounds just being around Derrick Henry. And then the Cardinals in round 3, which James Conner, question mark. So, Scott, I'll let you go first. Which one of these is the most exciting?
Yeah, definitely the Cowboys. I also think it's the most likely. Jerry loves his Texas boys, but I'm also hearing that the Cowboys do like him quite a bit. And yeah, he kind of reminiscent of like when he took Zeke as early as he did. He profiled as the best three down running back in the class, just like Brooks. Really good pass protection. I know that's important to them. Zeke, elite at pass protection. And it's just, backfield competition is minimal. The offense is really high caliber. So just seems like the nuts landing spot. And like once that happens, you're going to see Jonathan Brooks ADP explode. Like you're talking jumping multiple rounds in redraft. I don't know where he is in Dynasty right now, but like in a 1 QB league, like you're talking like 105. And so, yeah, for sure. Cowboys for me.
Yep. We just did a Superflex mock draft with 10 folks from 10 different sites. He ended up going with the 12th overall pick. So that everyone was in on Brooks, and you can see him definitely climb. Evan, if he goes to the Ravens, how are you going to feel about that? Is it going to like bury him for a year? Are you going to be worried about it? How do you feel?
Look, the fact that he would go to the Ravens and that would allow him a chance to be able to sit and actually be able to properly get back from his knee injury, I think that would be huge. We're looking at a guy that you would still have to invest capital, but I also think that that would push the capital further back that you would have to actually invest in him. If he goes to the Ravens, you're going to see, oh, Lamar's there. Okay. Oh, King Henry's still there. Oh, all right. Now all of a sudden he goes from a 112 selection. If he goes to the Cowboys, maybe a 110 selection, all the way back to a mid-second, maybe even pushing back half of the second. At that price,
Yeah.
I'd be well in.
Yeah. I worry if it would almost get like the Kendre Miller treatment. Like Kendre Miller, super young, super good profile, goes to New Orleans, gets buried for his entire rookie year. Now you're getting him 3 to 4 rounds later in your dynasty startups. Like, if that would happen to Brooks, like he's kind of insulated. He's not going to completely tank, but he could definitely, have some problems there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of fantasy gamers have him as their RB1, some RB2, even fewer RB3. But I don't really see anybody having him below their top 3 RBs in this class, which should allow him some value insulation, especially since he went to a major college that we saw him on a national stage with Texas. I think that is a big thing to be able to remember. A lot of the casual dynasty players have seen him on the field and seen what he can do in college, and they're going to be able to justify to themselves, oh, okay, knee injury, it takes a little bit longer to be able to get back from it. Okay, maybe he doesn't quite look like himself this year. So, yeah, I mean, if he comes back strong in the second half of the season and plays that backup role to King Henry, be able to spell him, get 5 to 10 carries a game, I think that'd be perfect to be able to ease him back into the season.
Yeah. It makes a ton of sense from a team building perspective. Like if I'm an NFL team and I'm trying to get the most out of my backfield, it makes a ton of sense. But as far as being able to be useful for fantasy, it would be kind of heartbreaking. Let's move over to his running mates at Texas. Let's talk about Adonai Mitchell. Looking at the draft capital projected, Bills at 28, Ravens at 30, Cowboys at 24. Each of those high-powered offenses, good quarterbacks, lots of reason to be excited. Scott, yards per route run, Adonai Mitchell is an absolute nightmare. Watching the film, I decided to split it into 2 different columns. It's Adonai Mitchell when he's trying and Adonai Mitchell the rest of the time. And Adonai Mitchell trying, top 3 receiver in the class. Like he might be fighting with Rome for that 3 spot. It's just that the other 75% of snaps, he looks like an abomination. How does that fit into your analytics profile? And then what should these landing spots excite you?
Yeah, I feel like a guy who's not trying 75% of the time. That's just a red flag. That's like reminiscent of Kadarius Toney and a number of like all the busts I was really excited about in at least one season who never worked out. Yeah, landing spot is Jaguars. He's just going to be a Jaguar. It's just going to happen. This is such a Trent Baalke guy. I can't imagine any other landing spot. And that's not a good landing spot to me because Doug Peterson wide receivers have always underwhelmed for fantasy. except maybe slot guy Christian Kirk, but just he loves his tight ends, and Calvin Ridley disappointed, Jeremy Maclin, Deshaun Jackson, weren't as productive as they probably should have been. So on this list, best landing spot, I mean, Bills, I think, is the nuts. And then Cowboys are really nice landing spot too. He could be the wide receiver too. Doesn't have to be the alpha. Great place for him to grow and learn and excel as their deep threat.
Yeah. The Cowboys have kind of been looking for two to unlock their offense. We're looking at, they brought in Brandon Cooks. They thought Michael Gallup might be a thing. They even signed an old Steelers great, which was hilarious to see. Just they're looking for somebody that can take the top off of a defense and make some guys miss. And maybe Adonai Mitchell is that guy. Like, he has all of the measurables. He checks a lot of boxes when you're just looking at like athleticism. And if you only watch, he's kind of like Zach Wilson. You watch his 10 best plays and you're like, man, this is a top 3 receiver. It's just once you sort it by like top 30 plays, you see some very serious red flags. Evan, let's say he goes to the Ravens. I'm going to give you the way less fun landing spot. Zay Flowers, obviously, short and intermediate area, great little jitterbug. We talk about Mark Andrews, their possession receiver, able to move the sticks. Like, would he just be resigned to Nelson Aguilar with dreads, or like, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I think he would be the perfect best ball target at that point. What is he going to do? He's going to push the field. He's going to get those deep balls from Lamar. He's going to allow the other players on that offense to be able to do what they do best. And what does that mean? It means he could very likely be able to break a handful of plays every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. And that would be a startable asset in a best ball league, especially at wide receiver.
Could definitely see that. The spike weeks would be fun. I just think the lows would also be super low, but in best ball, it doesn't really matter that much. Scott, ask her what she thinks about Adonai Mitchell and see if she wants to know anything. For the people at home, Scott's girlfriend, wife, whoever.
Fiance, she said he stinks. Adonai Mitchell.
Okay.
Stinks. That's because I told her to say that. Sorry.
You heard it here first. He's off our boards. Thank you, the future Mrs. Barrett.
You guys kind of look like who's Chandler from Friends is who you look like, Mike, and then Evan, you kind of look like the most recent version of Leonardo DiCaprio, like maybe when he's on his the Charles Manson movie where he's on his couch, he's like, oh, that's me. Can you do it? Wow. Can you do the meme real quick, the pointing meme? No. Okay.
Maybe next time. Could you be less involved? Anyway, we have next up going to the running back.
You guys never heard that?
No, I haven't gotten Chandler Bing before. I've gotten what's the guy from the new Top Gun movie?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Miles Teller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's back when I had the mustache, but had to shave that recently. Workout in the way.
I got Michael Cera like twice in high school, and I just grew a beard and never again.
There you go. Got it. Yeah. Grow the beard to hide it.
Ed Norton, I would get that was the most complimentary one, I think. Usually they're like they're weird, but yeah, go on.
Well, I'm flattered. We can just talk about how beautiful everybody is. Let's just do that.
We could, for sure.
Cool. Let's hop over to Trey Benson, running back from Florida State. He is my running back one of the class. I'm in love with him, so I'm going to abstain from this. Most likely landing spots, we have the Packers in round 2. That feels a little old because they signed Josh Jacobs. The Cowboys in round 2, which I'm going to eliminate that from you guys because that's clearly the best spot. Or the Bengals in round 2, where he can go compete with Zach Moss and Chase Brown, if that is a thing to you. Scott, between the Packers and Bengals. I mean, obviously it's the Bengals. Why would that excite you? And do you think he could beat Zach Moss for the role?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Who are we talking about?
Trey Benson, Florida State running back, in all of his glory.
Okay. Obviously, Cowboys nuts landing spot.
Yeah.
What's the Packers have Josh Jacobs. Bengals have who now?
Zach Moss and Chase Brown.
Yeah. So definitely them. Just far superior talent. Comp for me for Trey Benson was like Kenneth Walker, like athletic clone to Kenneth Walker, but probably somewhere on the Walker, Javonte, Khalil Herbert spectrum. But there's like a chance he's just the next Nick Chubb, just based off of the athleticism. Like he's the best tackle breaker in PFF college history and all that stuff. So just early down workhorse and just really excelling in that role right off the bat. And then I think there's upside. He can do more as a pass catcher, although we haven't seen it. But it's just great offense, minimal touches in that backfield. So that's what I would go with if I can't repeat with the Cowboys.
We have very important things to get to. Matthew Perry, RIP, is who played Chandler Bitten.
RIP.
So thank you very much, Olivia. Thanks for listening. That's my wife. But anyway, yeah, Trey Benson, I can see the like Kenneth Walker to Khalil Herbert. That's a great spectrum, by the way. I'm going to steal that. But I think that Benson has a little more in the pass catching ability. Like I've seen him run wheel routes. I've seen him make catches with his hands. It's just he was competing with Coleman and Wilson and Jaheim Bell, who is super underrated. Like there were 4 NFL caliber players on there. So tough to see where he's going to go. Evan, off of this list, where would you like to see Trey Benson go?
I mean, I was going to talk about the NFL landing spot for the Packers because everybody would absolutely hate it.
It would be gross.
It really would be. It really would be. But off of this list, I mean, if I'm staying on the list, I can't stay on the list, Mike. So
no, it's all right. I just made the rules.
Okay, fair enough. Can I then go with Houston?
Joe Mixon concerns?
Yeah, I mean, Mixon's there, sure, but why not just add another running back? I mean, why not just make a super offense? Because it's a lot of fun and we're fantasy gamers, not actual NFL GMs.
I mean, from an NFL standpoint, it would be super fun. And like they would have the Thunder and the Lightning, the reliable old vet and the young buck that's going to figure everything out. Like there's a lot of really cool things that could happen there from a real NFL perspective, but also from fantasy. Like this would only help CJ Stroud.
It really would.
It's like the Stephon Diggs trade. Like 3 receivers, 2 running backs. None of them become fantasy relevant because they all eat each other. Dalton Schultz is crying in the corner with his thumb in his mouth. Like just be an absolute nightmare.
All right, fine. Off this list, let's go with the Giants then. Actual pick here.
Okay.
We'll go with the Giants. The Giants desperately need a running back. Their offensive line is still a mess. Will it be a bottom 5 offensive line again this year, though? I don't know. I have some hope that they can be outside of the bottom 5.
Okay.
You know, there's a little bit of hope for that. Where would he be going? Because the Giants already traded their 2nd round pick, so they're either trading back into the 2nd or he's going in the 3rd, which if he's a 3rd round running back, I mean, he's falling a little bit down boards. He's going to an ugly landing spot where, you know, they still have Singletary. So, you know, people are going to have that one a concern for him. But, I mean, why not? We'll see what happens. Could be a fun landing spot.
If Trey Benson goes to New York and loses carries to Devin Singletary, I am going to have a problem. You're going to see me like running through the streets, setting Singletary jerseys on fire. I'm going to be very grumpy. Scott, how would you feel about a New York landing spot?
I think that's great. I don't really have much faith in Devin Singletary. I think Dameon Pierce, who I like, is just a brutal fit for that outside zone scheme. And it's like a potent, deadly offense with a quarterback who's playing at a top 10 level. And so, like, yeah, of course his efficiency numbers look good. His production look good, but I don't think he's anyone to take seriously. So it's a good landing spot. Just, you need a running back who can give you something in the passing game, just because the Giants are going to be trailing, I think, just about every game. And it's going to be rough out there. Not a lot of touchdown potential. So you really need someone with PPR cheat code upside. But at the end of the day, you know, volume is really the most important thing with the running back position. So maybe there's still enough there.
All right, cool. We're running up on time. So Scott, I want to throw it over to you. Pick one wide receiver that we'll talk about. And then if you want to let me know what running back you want to talk about, we'll just cover a couple of your favorites because you've been deep diving this class and putting a lot of work in. And I want to hear your thoughts on the guys you want to talk about.
So Xavier Worthy, you have Cardinals, Chiefs, Eagles. Obviously the Chiefs, but like to me, so Marshawn Lloyd is one of the most landing spot dependent players in this class because he sucked ass running in zone schemes.
Yep.
Like man gap, he was awesome. Zone, he was horrible. And like that stinks because I think only 10 teams played man gap over 50% of the time last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then wide receivers, Worthy and Franklin to me are massively landing spot dependent, just given their size, their low BMI, which maybe doesn't matter as much in today's NFL, given how creative offensive coordinators are finding a way to get these guys free access off the ball using motion. So I think it's really important he goes to like a motion heavy team. The good news, if he lands with one of those teams, is like those are all the best teams, like the really smart front offices and smart coaches. You look at the top 6 teams by use of motion, it's Miami at like 82%, Chiefs at 75%, and then the Rams and the Lions and all the really good teams you can think of. So really hoping for one of those spots. The Chiefs would be one of those spots. Cardinals, no. Eagles, no. For Franklin, Bills, no. Niners, yes. I guess they would need to move Ayuk for me to be really excited. And then Carolina, no.
Yeah. Both very landing spot dependent. I think Xavier Worthy might be a little more landing spot proof because I've seen his ability to work defenders. Like as he's working through his route tree, he's able to kind of stop on a dime. He's able to work with design touches, and weird, like given his size, like watched him truck a dude at the goal line to get in the end zone. Like hilarious clip that everybody likes to take. The corner is 195, 200 pounds, and Worthy puts him in the weight room. But Franklin, for somebody that is as tall as he is, he doesn't bend the same way that a 6'2", or what is he, 6'1", 6'2"? Somewhere around there, like a player like that should. He needs to sink his hips a little bit more. He needs to bend a little bit more in order to stop and come back on his short to intermediate routes. He's kind of like Jalen Hyatt, who I liked a lot. I just wish that he had a little more stop-start ability. But cool. Those are 2 great wide receivers that we are kind of excited about, depending on landing spot. Evan, gun to your head. Xavier Worthy goes to the Cardinals at 27. Troy Franklin goes to the Carolina Panthers at 33. Which one would you rather draft?
Worthy, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I would take that. Thinking about it, he can go into, I mean, not to typecast him, but he can go into the Hollywood Brown role, which was a very efficient role for that offense. Then we play in a lot of leagues that have a little bit of a kick return boost as well. You look at the fact that he could be a punt returner for teams, maybe work his way into kick returning as well. For the Cardinals, that wide receiver room is just absolutely dearth of talent. And just think about the Kyler Murray owners and what this would do to Kyler if, because I saw a mock draft where they ended up going Marv and then Worthy with their 2 first-round picks. I mean, think about pairing that with McBride and what that could do for the offense, and specifically for Kyler. At that point, what would you value Kyler? Would you put Kyler above Herbert if both of those guys ended up going to Arizona?
You're tugging on my heartstrings because I love Herbert.
I do.
For fantasy football this season, I feel like you would have to. Like you would be obligated to. He brings more as a rusher. He has better weapons. Like you don't have the enigma of what a Harbaugh would do. But Scott, what would you do with that?
Sorry, what was that? I was trying to pull up pictures of Leonardo DiCaprio and Chandler Bing to prove I'm not hitting on you. Maybe I was just in a comping mood, but it's like, anyways, yeah. Who are we talking
No, it's
about?
okay. If you want to flirt, it's fine. We can flirt before, during, after the show. It's great. If let's say Xavier Worthy goes to Arizona at 27, they also take Marv at 4. So now you're adding 2 elite weapons. Who would you rather have, Kyler Murray or Justin Herbert, on your dynasty teams?
Well, first, let me say, like, I like that move a lot, particularly Marv. Like that, they need that so desperately. Trey McBride was a top 15 player against zone last year, and then against man, Arizona was a bottom 5 team where Michael Wilson, I think, had like nearly 0.00 yards per route run against man, like maybe 18 total yards, and then Rondale Moore also ranked bottom 5 of like 100 plus qualifiers against man. So they need that outside man beater wide receiver one. And then if you can get another one, because, you know, I'm not really a true believer in Michael Wilson. I think that's a great move. And what was the question? Did I just go off a tangent?
That was great thoughts. Would you rather have with this great move,
there we go.
Kyler Murray or Herbert?
Definitely Kyler Murray, because so Justin Herbert, like you just said, you're a big believer in Herbert. I'm a big believer in the talent as well, but like he was because he's not running, even though he's like built exactly like Josh Allen, and he's basically exactly as athletic as Devin Singletary, just like 60 pounds heavier and a foot taller. He doesn't run, and so like so much of his production has been on just volume, where the Chargers are like this consistently top 3 team by dropbacks. And so I looked at it. If they were just perfectly average in dropbacks per game, instead of him looking like QB3 a few years ago and then QB10 last year, he's really dropping down to like mid-range QB2 levels, low-end QB2 levels. And like I think Harbaugh's Chargers are going to be way more run heavy than just league median. So that is my concern with him. And then there's no wide receivers to throw to on top of it. So you give Kyler these multiple weapons, and he has this rushing upside. That's an easy one to me.
It would be heartbreaking for me, but I agree. All right, Scott, before we close it out, let's hit one more running back. So between Marshawn Lloyd, Jalen Wright, Bucky Irving, and Audric Estime, which one of those are you the most excited about? And then we'll talk about their landing spots.
I'm most excited about Estime. I just, I have Marshawn Lloyd higher in my rankings, but Estime is just like my guy. So like, he's my type when it comes to a running back, where he's like big, thick, powerful, breaks tackles, surprisingly agile for his size, but just like has no deep speed. He's not going to house anything, any of these runs. He's definitely like maxed out, and you saw that with the combine. But his pro day wasn't bad. Like I had him by my metric, like perfectly league average athletic running back based on his pro day. And then just the rest of the numbers were off the charts, where he saw the second most stacked boxes of any running back in this class, easily led in box adjusted yards per carry, led the FBS in yards per carry last year, set Notre Dame's rushing record in rushing touchdowns. And then you look at his numbers versus Kyren Williams, they had like identical offensive line play when both running backs were at Notre Dame. And Estime as a runner, maybe not so much as a pass catcher, although there's upside there, blew him out of the water in terms of rushing efficiency. And so like the 3 landing spots you have here are Bills, Jets, Rams. Like I would not like the Jets just because Breece Hall is my dynasty RB1. Don't want him messing with that. Rams, I would kind of like it just because like, hey, they made it work with Kyren, right? And it's kind of like the same profile, but better, where, red flag levels of athleticism based on the combine. But I think Bills is really exciting. I just think Joe Brady, we saw him moving more towards a run heavy offense. And, you lose Stephon Diggs, you lose Gabriel Davis. And I don't know that James Cook has the size necessary to be a workhorse. So I could see Estime thriving in that role.
100% agree. I could just see a future where it's Audric Estime gets 6 carries for 2 touchdowns and 4 yards. Like that's his whole stat line, gives you 12.4 fantasy points. And you're like, wow, that's a great RB2. Great week. So it would be a blast to see him there. Scott, thank you very much for joining us. It has been an absolute blast. I hope that you've had a good time comparing us to celebrities, listening to our silly little intros and outros. Do you want to tell the 4 listeners at home where to find you?
Fantasypoints.com or on Twitter at Scott Barrett DFB.
Cool. Thanks again to listeners at home. We're sponsored by Dubby. Use code FFRPG at checkout to get a little bit of jingle in your pocket back. We're also sponsored by Trophy Smack and all sorts of other things. Just, check out the page. Head over to Twitter at FFMikeCash. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. And we'll see you at the draft on Thursday. Bye-bye.